Hello again and welcome to World Talks, where every word matters. I'm Anna Kalczynska, coming to you live from Warsaw, Poland. It was a play of its own to watch the world leaders gathered this Saturday on the reopening ceremony in Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. All were centered around Donald Trump. Their eyes were on American president-elect, who promised to end the war in Ukraine without, however, giving any specifics so far. Yesterday, though, Trump uttered a word, and it certainly is not to the allies from NATO pleasing. To elaborate on the implication of the future American administration in the peace process between Russia and Ukraine, I'm joined by Rudik, MP, Voice Party leader. Hello, Kyra. Good to have you.
Hello, Anna, and thank you so much for having me.
So I would absolutely consider leaving NATO should allies not pay their bills, says Donald Trump. How would you comment on this very statement?
Anna, this statement and any other statements that Donald Trump made are not new. This is something that he was claiming during his campaign, and we need to understand that there is a difference between a candidate that is campaigning, president-elect, and then the president that is sitting in the White House. And I believe that the main goal of Donald Trump right now is to pressure allies into increase the military spending. This is something that he was doing again during campaigning, and he is doing right now because there is a feeling amongst people in the United States that he is addressing that the United States should not be the only ones who are paying for the security of the whole alliance. And we understand that right now, given how stronger the authoritarian regimes try to look, it is incredibly important that the allies will stay united. Otherwise, it will be a victory of the authoritarian regimes. So we hope that there is a solution in increasing the military spending according to the NATO rules and allowing the NATO to remain united and to pressure the authoritarian regimes.
All right, so you're reading these words with hope and good faith. In the very same lining, Ukraine's president said he had good and productive discussions with Donald Trump and the French President Emmanuel Macron on Saturday. So what do we know about the outcomes of this meeting?
There are no news per se in terms of the discussions with Donald Trump. He will try to figure out some peace deal, and he was very open about that in his statements. However, as of right now, we in Ukraine do not see any pressure points from the United States or from NATO that could put Vladimir Putin onto the table of negotiations. On the opposite, I think we are talking too much about potential peace deals, which was always a plan B. And we are not talking enough about plan A, that we here in Ukraine think is the only way that would work. The plan A is to arm Ukraine to the point that we can defend ourselves and we can win over Russia. I think the recent events in Syria are showing you what we have been telling all the times, that authoritarian regimes can be won over and can be taken over, and that they look strong for some time, but you can win and you should be fighting them. And this is what we are doing in Ukraine. So while there are some persuasions that there should be peace negotiations, we are still persistent on saying, please, arm us for the point that we can defend ourselves, and we will show you that you don't have to negotiate with Russia. You can win over Russia and make sure that they would not attack again any sovereign state.
Exactly. How would you comment Donald Trump post on Truth, however, where he wrote that Putin lost 600,000 soldiers in Ukraine and Ukraine lost 400,000, and that this is a war that should have never started in the first place, and that Zelensky would like to make a deal and stop that madness. There should be immediate ceasefire and negotiations should begin.
The question remains still the same, is who or what, by which way, will make sure that Putin, if even he gets to the table of negotiations, will keep his part of the bargain. Let me ask you, is Donald Trump ready to go to war with Russia if they break their part of the deal? because we are not right now talking hypotheticals. We have been in negotiations with Russia since 2014, when they annexed Crimea and took over some of the eastern regions of Ukraine. And there has been more than 200 rounds of negotiation with them during this time. And then look where it led us. In 2022, they started full-scale invasion. So the question is not even about talking to Putin or having a deal with Putin, but making sure that they will keep their part of the bargain, which right now I do not see any good way of doing. So then we are coming back to our question. Number one is, if you arm us, you wouldn't have to be responsible on what Russia does. You will be supporting the democratic state that is fighting for its existence. And I think if Donald Trump wants to be perceived as a strong leader, and we see that he believes that this is the best thing for his image, then appeasing the dictator, as they were doing it in 2014, is not the way to go. Moreover, we have heard the statements from Putin's inner circle members who are saying that Russia is not ready to negotiate. They feel that they are doing very well. So there are many questions without the answers right now. We see that Donald Trump is making really bold statements, but I think we will have to look at his actions moving forward.
The recent events are really unfolding, and the global situation is so dynamic that it has an impact also on the war in Ukraine. The president-elect Donald Trump highlighted Russia's weakened position globally with regard to its retreat from Syria. How do you see that impacting Russia's military strategy in Ukraine right now?
There would not be such a military impact on that, because Russia was really having the majority of their forces concentrated in Ukraine, which basically allowed them to withdraw certain troops from Syria, and then that weakened the regime. But globally, it has a tremendous influence. First, on this story of invincibility of the dictator's regime, they are saying that they are strong. But the truth is, if you push enough and if you answer with force to their force, you can win over them. And this is what we have seen with Yanukovych's regime here in Ukraine. And we have seen this in Syria. And we are only telling the world, look, they are not invincible. They can be won over. Just help us, because we are willing to do this. Second point is, of course, it shows Russia's allies that in the critical time, Russia would not be able to protect them. And we hope it will have an influence on African countries, on the countries in BRICS, and of course in the Middle East. And the third point is that Russia was using Syria to put pressure onto Europe with the Syrian refugees to trying to control the export of the oil and gas. And right now, while there is, we hope that there will be a new government in Syria, it will be much harder for them to do that. And they are showing the weakness of their allies. But let me warn you, Russia does not give up on any of the countries that they feel that they in their circle of interest. They never give up in Moldova. They never give up in Georgia, where we saw that the reforms and European path was irreversible. They never give up in Ukraine, and they will not give up in Syria. They will use different mechanisms. They will try to influence what they can. And we need to be absolutely careful and clear about the fact that the authoritarian regimes don't just give up on their plans if their thing is not going their way. So coming back to our first point, the only answer to that is unity and sticking to the democratic values and ability to defend each other.
Kira, we hear you when you say about armament and help to defeat Russia, but at some point the negotiations are going to take place. President Zelensky emphasized that the importance of a just peace, as he says. So how does it align with or differ from international perspectives?
Let's go one abstraction higher. Anna, you are saying that there should be peace negotiations. But let me ask you, if there is a peace, let's imagine that. Do you think that Russia and China and Iran and North Korea will stop their military production? Do you think that they will give up on developing new weapons and supplies? And they silently will store them into their shelves and will not try to launch the war of aggression somewhere else or even again in Ukraine? I think we should be thinking here about bigger picture. And Ukraine is a forefront of this bigger picture, but there are now no solutions that will be just, swiping things under the carpet and hoping that the ceasefire will fix everything. It will not. We have seen that it will not. And this is why in Ukraine, we have already paid an enormous price. The majority of Ukrainian families have right now either someone fighting at the front line or we have lost someone at this war. And this is why for us, we need to make sure that if the peace arrives, it's a long-lasting peace and that we shouldn't be waiting for yet another attack from Russia or from its allies. This is why for us, it's so important that there is a long-term and really confirmed solution on how that would work. We have already gone through the Budapest Memorandum, which was just a piece of paper and did not protect us, though we gave up on our nuclear arsenal. So when there are discussions about the peace deal, they need to be just a part of a bigger picture about the global security and the international law. How would it work and who will ensure that?
Kira, thank you very much for being with us this morning. Kira Rudik, Ukrainian member of parliament, Voice party leader, was our guest this morning. Thank you very much. And that concludes this edition of World Talks. Coming up next, our world news. Please stay with us.